1 o'clock, number 5 Baltimore Ravens versus the number 4 Tennessee Titans. Now, in all honesty, this should have been in one of the primetime slots. I think on Sunday night, this should have been the primetime game. Just because I feel like these teams match up the best out of everyone in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense are finally hitting the stride. Lamar's starting to look like MVP Lamar. And Derrick Henry, Mr. 2K, DH 2K, no more CJ 2K down in Tennessee. Doesn't have quite as good of a ring to it, but nonetheless, Derrick Henry has been on another level since last year. We've talked about it before. He's been the best running back in the last year, and he's not slowing down for the playoffs. These two teams met, I believe, it wasn't too long ago, maybe like a month ago or a few weeks ago. And in that realm, they went to overtime. Derrick Henry ran it in. And that's what I think is going to be the difference maker again. Yes, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense are starting to come into their own, and they look really hard to beat. The Titans just let the Texans put up 38 on them in an absolute thriller of an AFC South clinching game. I wouldn't say title game, an AFC South clinching game for the Titans. That was entertaining as all hell. Tannehill's going to do his thing. He's going to be serviceable. I think the most dangerous play in football is the read option, fake to Derrick Henry, and then watch Tannehill take off with it. Because there's a certain point in the game where you're just expecting Henry to run it up the middle, and you clog that middle, you pinch that defensive line, and then before you know it, Tannehill's taken off for 15 in the other direction. That's what I think makes this Titans team so difficult to beat, their run game. I wouldn't necessarily put it on Tannehill. This offense is Derrick Henry, and I think anyone could agree with that, especially late in the game when everyone's tired, the defense is tired. That's when Derrick Henry's going to take advantage because no one wants to tackle this big 250-pound plus monster down the field. So I think it's going to be another close one. I think this is going to be the most exciting matchup of the playoffs this weekend. I'm going to say the Titans take it 34-31.
I mean, I think I agree that this is the game to watch, and it really should have been at least in a 4 o'clock slot or something. I don't know why it's the 1 o'clock game, but yeah, this is the game to watch for Sunday, definitely. I'm going to take the Ravens because I think that I've said all season that I think the Ravens, their team is not any different really from last year, other than they've added J.K. Dobbins and Patrick Queen, which only makes their team better, really. So I've said all season that when they get hot, you got to watch out because they, to me, are still the second or third best team in the AFC. And they've gotten hot at the right time, whether they, because they beat up on, subpar teams still, they're still riding in, similar to how the Bucs are. The Bucs beat up on pretty bad teams, but they've got the momentum. I think the Ravens have got it right now. And Lamar Jackson and Marquise Brown for me, that's the big factor. Marquise Brown is slow throughout the season, but he's got 5 touchdowns in the past 5 games, 2 just last week. When that connection gets going, that makes the run game, for the Ravens even better. And it makes Lamar, in play actions and option plays even more lethal because now you have to look downfield for Marquise Brown or look across the field for Mark Andrews. Once the passing game, which is picking up, gets going, that's when the Ravens get dangerous. And I think it's a revenge game from them for last year. And I'm having Lamar steal this one.
I'm kind of having a tough time with this game because the Titans' defense is terrible. They've let up 24 or more points in 7 of the last 8 games they played. The one they didn't was the Jaguars, which doesn't really count. And they've let up over 30 points in 3 of the last 5 games, which they played some good teams, but their defense just really cannot hold anybody. So the Ravens, like you said, Jordan, I think they're hitting their stride at the right time. And if they catch this Titans defense off guard, they can put up a lot of points. Whereas the Ravens, on the other hand, I think their defense has the potential to really shut Tennessee down. Outside of Derrick Henry, we all know what he did last year, the Ravens, in the playoffs. But Ryan Tannehill, I've been on this train the whole season. He's not an elite passer. He's not a great quarterback. He'll win you games in this system, but he's not going to go out there and really win you a playoff game against a relatively stout defense. So
this is Derrick Henry's team.
Right. All right. He's Derrick Henry's quarterback, essentially.
Yeah.
So I want to go with the Ravens here. I think it could be close. If Derrick Henry does his thing, then this could easily go the other way. But, Tennessee's combination of relying on Derrick Henry and having kind of a shoddy defense, which is a lot worse than their defense last year. The defense last year was really what carried them throughout the playoffs. I think the Ravens are just going to take it. They're really hitting their groove right now, and the Titans have not looked great, especially defensively over the last 6-7 weeks of the season. So.
Yeah, we're going to get into the next game, which, I don't know, maybe the Titans and Ravens should have been in the slot of, but I'm going to be rooting for the Titans. I got my Derrick Henry jersey ready. Alabama, not. I'll wear any college. That's a thing you got to know about me. I'll wear any college jersey. I'm not going to wear a Titans jersey. The only one I would wear is Brady. I have a Brady Bucks jersey now.
Ooh.
But nonetheless, number 7 Chicago Bears visiting the number 2 New Orleans Saints.
Do we have to talk with this one?
The Bears, I think they're the least deserving team to be in the playoffs. I mean, I think Washington deserves to be in, even though the record doesn't say so. And even though Chicago has them by 1 win, Chicago hasn't really shown anything besides David Montgomery. Their defense, I don't think, is as great as everyone hypes it up to be. The monsters at the Midway, Khalil Mack is coming. It's not good. If you really look at it, I mean, Kyle Fuller is extremely underrated. I'll give you that. He has a chance to lock up Michael Thomas on Sunday. But I think it was Jordan that was saying last week, it might have been, I don't know, I might be confusing you with somebody. Hell, I might be confusing you with Colin Cowherd. I don't know. I kind of see the resemblance, though. But when you're switching Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky every week because, I don't know, the other one sucks more than the other every single week. I mean, when Jordan said that, I was kind of like, but now it's set in over the last week. And it's like, damn, they really don't deserve to be in the playoffs. And this one has potential to get ugly. Yeah, you heard that one. There she is. But it seemed like Chicago was hanging in there with Green Bay this past week. And then, obviously, Green Bay ran away with it. I think we're going to see the same formula. The Saints are going to win this one 35-13. This is going to be another ugly one, but at the same time, the Saints are probably going to be without all their running backs again. Alvin Kamara tested positive for COVID-19, and everyone around him in that running backs room, Latavius Murray, and there was a few others that I can't name off the top of my head. Even their running backs coach, they're going to be probably non-existent in this game. So you're going to see probably a lot of Taysom Hill runs. You're going to see a lot of slant man. And I think one of the most interesting storylines, as of right now, Mitch Trubisky is starting. Do we see Nick Foles in this game? And we know what Nick Foles can do in the playoffs.
I don't want to talk about it.
Nobody does, but we have to.
I mean, I think you could. I think you could see him come in maybe at halftime if they're not maybe moving the ball at all. But one thing I wanted to go back to is, I mean, if you bring up the Packers game from last week, no one expected the Bears to beat the Packers. It was kind of like hopefully the Cardinals lose. That was what Bears fans were thinking, and evidently they did, which is a thing in itself, like where you lose the game to get in, but then another team loses, so you end up getting in by default. I hate that. Not talk about not deserving to get in, but I think one thing that I saw against the Packers was there's just too many mistakes by Trubisky in the offense. I mean, it wasn't like they were, like you said, they stayed with him for a while, but they started to collapse at the end. There were a lot of mistakes made, where they could have stayed with him for longer, and they just didn't. And in that case, you're losing to the Packers. No one expects you to win, but when you're making these basic mistakes going into the playoffs, and now you have to face a Saints defense who's, top 5, top 3 in the league. Not to mention in the dome where Breeze just seems to thrive. It's
different in the dome.
Yeah, he's built different in the dome, 100%. I mean, that's like a recipe. That's not a good, recipe for a win. And I don't know. Like you said, David Montgomery's the only guy that on that offense that. Oh, I don't know Allen Robinson, but he's only as good as his quarterback, so he's kind of spotty. But yeah, their offense thrives through Montgomery for the past couple weeks, and he's going to get stonewalled by the Saints. And Breeze doesn't even have to. The argument about Breeze, not being as good as he used to be, that's fine, but he doesn't have to be great against the Bears. He could be decent and still win. So I'm going to take the Saints by at least a couple scores. I'll say by 14. I don't have an exact score, but a couple touchdowns, definitely.
Drew Brees could probably be dead on the middle of the field, and they would still easily win this game. The Bears
I would agree with that.
are the biggest joke of a playoff team maybe ever, because the football team, it's kind of like a meme, but at the same time they have a great defense. The Bears are just like incredibly
Yeah.
mediocre, and they somehow started like 5-1, and now they're 8-8. So they went 3-7 over the last 10 games, and the only reason they really got in is because the Cardinals, Kyler Murray was hurt several times throughout the past couple of weeks, and it kind of like hit their offensive ability. Like really, like the Cardinals missed the playoffs, the Bears didn't make the playoffs. That's kind of how I look at it. And the Saints, even if they don't have a running back, like it doesn't matter. They're still going to win this game. They have a great defense. Their offense will be fine. As long as they just have slant man, they can really just have whatever, and they don't have to worry about it. So there's really not a whole lot to say about this game. Mitch Trubisky isn't good. The most Bears thing of all time, though, would be to replace their quarterback in the middle of a playoff game. Just that's something they would definitely do.
Jay Cutler comes out of retirement.
Yeah, they'd probably be better off. They really don't have a whole lot of options. I don't know who's really better for them. Sometimes Mitch Trubisky looks good. Sometimes Foles looks better somehow. But I don't know. I mean, even watching Trubisky last week, he threw 50 times for 250 yards and like a pick and no touchdowns. But he probably should have had a couple picks, because there was one play where he threw the ball into the end zone to a guy who was completely covered, and the ball went between a Packers defensive back's legs. So the guy has the decision making of like a squirrel in the middle of the road, and there's a big car coming towards him. He doesn't know which way to go.
Yeah,
it's just not good. So the Saints are going to steamroll them.
And the big thing is with your question, Anthony, about Nick Foles. I mean, if you replace Mitch Trubisky with Nick Foles mid-game, that about does it for Trubisky's time in Chicago. Because you can't replace your, quote-unquote franchise or future quarterback that you think has some potential in the middle of a playoff game, and then turn around.
The Bears, I wouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah, and then turn around next. I mean, yeah, you're right. It could happen. But then turn around next season and be like, all right, you're our starter. I just don't see it happening. But I mean, I think if the game is close and Trubisky just looks shit, maybe Breeze isn't performing well, and it's just like a 6-0 game or something. Maybe you see Foles go in there just for a spark, but I don't know. I hesitate to say the Bears, even the Bears being as dumb as they are, do that.
Not a very exciting game at 4 o'clock, since I'm going to be at work while the Titans and Ravens play. That's just my luck, though. I think the NFL did that just for me. Final game Sunday night. Number 6 Cleveland Browns versus the number 3 Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think it's ever happened in history. These teams just played in Week 17. Now they're facing off in the wild card rounds. A little bit, wild, if I may say.
Shut up.
These teams have had two close. These two teams have had some pretty close games this year, and I'm excited to see. I'm kind of excited to see this next installment. But let's not. Everyone's hyping up the Browns. Yes, they finally did it. They made the playoffs for the first time since 2002. Like we've been saying, everybody's got a little Browns fan in them. I'm certainly rooting for the Browns this weekend, even though my prediction later on will not say that. We can't forget that a Mason Rudolph-led JV Steelers team beat the best Browns team in, 30 years. Literally 30 years. This is their best team since the Ozzie Newsome days in Cleveland. So you got to think, is this... And that was their starters. This was the Baker Mayfield. I mean, maybe, okay, you're missing Odell. What difference does that make? None. Could Cleveland pull it off? I think this is a big upset for Cleveland if they can go in and win. And I think I will be in every Instagram comment section clowning Steelers fans if they somehow lose this game.
Yeah. I think any chance that they still have a chance, but any chance the Browns really had at pulling an upset went away when practically their entire coaching staff tested positive for COVID today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we saw the Lions granted that's a little different. We saw the Lions without a head coach against the Buccaneers, and they lost by 40, and their only touchdown was on special teams. So, I feel so bad for Browns and their fans, because the one time you make the playoffs and you have a great year, your entire coaching staff is sick and they're gonna miss the playoff game. Like versus
talk about the most Bears thing. That's the most Browns thing.
That's the most Browns thing, and like. They could do it if they if the stars align, they could somehow do it. It's just the Steelers will probably just have enough star power to get over the hump. The defense is good enough. Big Ben, as long as he doesn't, have one of those games where he looks like a mailbox running around and throwing 10,000 interceptions, they're probably going to be all right. I think the Browns really just need a miracle. If it turns out that, as of right now, the game's not going to be moved. If the game ends up staying in place, it's really not looking good for the Browns. One thing I do want to say though is that if this were to happen to the Chiefs or something, like if Mahomes was to test positive or Andy Reid or something,
God.
I feel like the NFL would be inclined to move the game.
Yeah, I agree.
Versus the Browns, it's not really fair. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I'm rooting for the Browns. I just don't think they'll be able to do it.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say. I've been a pretty big, not cheerleader. I don't cheer for the Steelers, but I just think that they're more legit than some people give credit for. So I'm picking the Steelers I think they're going to blow them out, honestly, because I think to your point, Pat, we saw the Lions with no head coach, and yeah, it's the Lions, but even listening to some of the ESPN analysts and stuff say, how important the head coach is. It's not just about like numbers and, schemes. It's about like, getting the feel for the game, having coached 16 games this season, what to look for and stuff like that. Whoever's stepping in here is not in that position, who was not in that position for, 4 months.
So he's a good coach too.
Yeah,
at least
that
this
too.
year, if this year's any indication, he's a really good coach.
Yeah, exactly. And at that point, you're asking Baker Mayfield to do more now. You've shifted the weight from your coach to more on Baker Mayfield, and against the Steelers defense that's been great all season. It's not going to happen. It's not working out for the Browns this year. I mean, they look good for the future. I mean, I don't mean to be blunt, but I just don't think they're going to win or even compete in this game. Like Anthony said, you had Mason Rudolph last week. It was a game. It shouldn't have been.
The Steelers were a 2-point conversion away from potentially ruining the Browns' magical season.
Yeah. I mean, even that. I mean, even if the game was within 7. I mean, it's the backup. You've got guys on the Steelers out.
Head.
This was a JV team that stuck with the Browns, full squad, and that now you put Big Ben in there, put the other guys that missed the game in. You take the Browns head coach away. I mean, it's like, come on. I think there's only one right answer.
Yeah.
Now, when I made these predictions literally yesterday was Monday. We're filming this on the Tuesday night. And I said Steelers would win this one 27-24. In the most Steelers, the most 2020 Steelers way possible. Juju gets away with a pass interference down the field on a game-winning touchdown. I said that the Steelers would be down 24-20 with like a minute and a half left, something like that. And they'd get away with some BS that they've gotten away with earlier in the year. Some of the calls were a little bit more sketchy than others. But nonetheless, it happened. It's in the past. It's whatever. But now, do I want to change that score? Because they just tested positive today, the entire Browns coaching staff. So I'm going to stick to my guns. I think Baker can do it. I'm just going to stick to my guns because I really don't want to go back and edit my article.
Respect.
Yeah, because I think the Browns can still be competitive. I think Mayfield's that fire's just going to light up in him like it has in the past. And this time a game actually means something. So he's going to really ball out. So
yeah, the first drives will be.
Don't forget about Nick Chubb.
The first drives will be telling. I think if you see, let's say the Steelers get the ball first. If you see a stop by the Browns, you'll know that. I think it'll wake the Steelers up and say, "Look, this isn't going to be easy," which I think will be good for the Browns because it gives the Steelers a little bit of anxiety, and it'll be good for the Browns because it'll show that they can slow down the Steelers' offense, and then vice versa. If Mayfield can drive down the field and score a touchdown at the start, I mean, you've got a little bit of confidence. But if you see Big Ben run down the field in 10 plays, and then you see Mayfield look, just lost out there, it's going to be a long game.
Yeah, I think the Browns almost have to score on their first drive,
Yep.
Something like that. But I mean, I feel like if the Steelers get some pressure put on them, I mean, we saw them rally against the Colts a few weeks ago, but I don't think Big Ben in recent years has really thrived under pressure like that. So we'll have to see if the Browns put some pressure on
them. It might be a little bit of a problem for the Browns, but getting pressure is certainly not going to be a problem for the Steelers. what is they have some like 200 game or like I don't know some crazy number of games with a consecutive with a sack, and they sacked Mayfield 4 times this past Sunday. So
Yeah.
that's going to be a problem. Pass protection is going to be major for Cleveland. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited for this weekend, playoff football. In a way, it's kind of relaxing because we can kind of sit back and kind of just enjoy it now that the Pats are out. I mean, I would love to see the
Yeah,
Patriots in
I
the
love
playoffs.
this.
Do
I love
not
it.
get me wrong. I would love nothing more than to see a Cam Newton-led Patriots team in the playoffs.